Hello, my name's Cliff Freilich. I'm the Executive Director of Cinema St. Louis, and we are the presenters of the 29th Annual Whitaker St. Louis International Film Festival. We're extremely happy to have with us both the director and the subject of The War and Peace of Tim O'Brien. Let me first introduce Aaron Matthews, who is the director of the film. Aaron is a two-time SLIF alum. He was here, it's been a while now, but with Panther in Africa and then The Paper. And as I discovered, I didn't even realize this, he has another film in this year's festival. He was a producer on a doc short by the name of Colette, which is playing with the doc feature called The Lesson. So we welcome Aaron. And then the subject of The War and Peace of Tim O'Brien is, of course, author Tim O'Brien, whom I'm going to briefly embarrass by telling him how much of a fanboy I am of his work, and that I shared this with Aaron when I met my wife something like 37 years ago. She asked me for some books that would sort of clarify who I am and what I like. And one of those books was Going After Cacciato. Sadly, she didn't have the same reaction that I did. She found it a little too intense with regard to its subject. But anyway, I just wanted to share that going in. So let's begin the process. Let me start with Aaron and ask him, did you know Tim when you started this project? How did the film come about? What were the origins of the documentary?
I knew Tim. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you to the St. Louis International Film Festival for showing this film. Truly honored to be part of the festival again. It's near and dear to my heart, and I wish so much that we could all be there in person. So thank you for screening. Thank you everyone for watching. I knew Tim because I had been working on a PBS project, a documentary for PBS about the history of the military draft, and Tim was one of the interviewees. And his interview just floored me. He presented as this kind of regular guy in his usual getup of jeans and a t-shirt. But as I quickly discovered, he really wasn't a regular guy in so many ways. He was just operating on another level, able to express really big ideas, especially about the meaning and impact of war from a veteran's perspective in a very relatable way. He was a straight talker. He was in many ways like unfiltered raw. And his interview made me, I was laughing, I was crying, I was kind of experiencing all these emotions. And then 4 feet from me, as I was interviewing him, this is like 6 years ago now, there was a guillotine to my left. And I was just like, that's really freaking weird. And he told me about these elaborate magic shows that he puts on in his house. And then he told me about a gambling trip he was planning for Las Vegas, and then the frame was just filled with smoke, And then I learned about his kids and that the fact he was writing one last book. And by the time the interview was over, I just thought to myself, I've got to make a documentary about this guy. And fortunately, over the next few months, Tim agreed. I think he was reluctant at first. He can tell you, but I spent a lot of time emailing with Tim and seeing him on the road, and we talked about the idea of the film, and we started it on a like we'll see how this goes kind of basis, and we eventually did.
Well, let's now pivot to you, Tim. And were you reluctant, as Aaron suspects, to actually agree to this project? And why did you say yes eventually?
I had hit it off with Aaron, as he described when we first met. He came to my house to interview me for the draft film. And he was just a great guy. He asked intelligent questions and he listened carefully. And he followed up, which is rarely done in interviews. So you'll sort of just question answer with nothing further generated out of the answer. And because he listened, the conversation evolved, and it wasn't just a ping pong kind of interview, question answer. I was reluctant, and for a long time I told Aaron, not only was I reluctant, that Aaron should be reluctant. Because my life is so boring. I sit at this chair I'm sitting in now in my study, and in my underwear, and write books. And there's nothing in the least dramatic about it, or so I believed then. Aaron taught me otherwise in the course of 6 years of back and forth and many visits from Aaron, that an ordinary life can be dramatic if the drama is found. And Aaron was able, in my sedentary writerly life, to extract the drama that everyone thinks their own life is dramatic, because it is to them. It's their life. And, will I wake up tomorrow? Will I not wake up and be dead, or somewhere, wake up on a respirator or a ventilator these days? Everyone's life is dramatic to them, but I didn't think my life would be full of drama for other people. And Aaron achieved in my opinion, the miraculous. He made the most boring life ever lived by any human being in the history of our planet. He extracted the little drama that there is in my life. He extracted it. But yeah, I was reluctant. I said no many times, and I did try to talk Aaron out of doing it. I said, try to find somebody that at least leaves the house now and then. But I'm not a house leaver. I'm a house stayer inner.
Well, you were built for the pandemic, Tim.
I was. I'm in this is my milieu. I'm hoping it lasts until the day I die. I mean, I want it to go on this way.
I don't know that all of us share those feelings, but nonetheless, it's great that you're easily able to cope, because it's a continuation of your usual existence. So Aaron, obviously at a certain point, Tim said yes, and you began the process. And talk a little bit about just the evolution of how you went about capturing Tim's life, both as an author, as a father, as a husband, as a cultural figure, and then of course as a person who is obviously turned to frequently to weigh in on issues of the day, particularly with regard to our current forever wars and conflicts generally.
I was just extremely fortunate that Tim and his family are so generous and open, and they invited me in. I mean, I've said, like, I embedded with the O'Brien family for 4 years, and it really felt like that. And I'm sure there were times where, like, I wish this guy would leave already, but they're so polite and nice, and they never really said that to my face. And so that was the main part of the process. I just kind of wanted to capture as much of Tim and his family's daily life as possible over a long stretch of time, so that we could see an arc and see change and transformation over time. And then also film Tim on the road, where he talks to people and addresses large audiences about his works, and, like you said, about really important issues related to America being in constant war, and what that does for individuals, and not to be too precious about it, like the soul of a nation, And Tim is just really convincing, I think, and persuasive, and so articulate in a way that I'm not being right now, just about how important it is for us to wrestle with this fundamental question.
Now, one of the things that I think really provides the intimacy that we don't oftentimes get in documentary portraits of authors is some of the footage that was shot by Tim's wife, particularly that memorable scene when Tim's down scrubbing the floor quite late at night while struggling with his writing. Was that something that you asked her to do, or was that something that she just naturally did? You can both answer this question.
Meredith both is the kind of videographer of the family, but I did ask her for the film when I wasn't there, because I live in Brooklyn, Tim lives in Austin. I did ask Meredith to capture as much material as she could, or was willing too, and as much material as Tim was willing to to be subjected to on the other side of the iPad as was possible. And so, yeah, a lot of that stuff just Tim can tell you better than I can about how that material came to be. But Meredith was filming for herself, family situations, and I also because I asked her.
Tim, you want to weigh in a little bit with regard to those very intimate moments that were captured?
Well, I do remember Meredith coming down in the middle of the night. It was probably 3 in the morning or 3:30. And I have a habit of getting out of bed early anyway. When I'm working on a book, it's quiet and you can work while the rest of the world is asleep. But that morning I wasn't working. I was down on the floor, just basically using Windex and paper towels to clean a big kitchen floor. It's my way of, I do this regularly, not on the floor. I wash dishes or I'll clean counters. I'll do little jobs that require no brain energy at all as a way of thinking. Your hand may be moving, but your brain is moving a lot more. And it's my way of letting those little bumblebees of thought, maybe something your high school English teacher, or it might be an episode in Vietnam, or it might be my dad throwing me a baseball, almost anything will capture my attention as I'm polishing the floor. And I'll ruminate on it to the point where I get sometimes too wrought up. I'll begin muttering, and the muttering will turn into a full speech where I'm speaking to my dad, or I'm, why the hell did you do that? Or I'm to the guy in Vietnam, stop doing that. As a way of preparing myself to begin to write, that you need to have some kind of, I don't know what the word is exactly, but I do know inexactly, though it's passion, or you care enough that you do get excited and wrought up on a subject. And that morning I was wrought up about the ease and with which our country, and all countries really, how blithely we will send people off to kill other people. And to the point where rectitude or righteousness doesn't even count for a whole lot. Whether a thing is right or wrong, a war, seems not to matter a whole lot, a little. But the concern is more about, in my opinion, more about a service to country and duty and words like that, a sense of personal honor. But you're killing people. And that seems to trump, to me anyway, all that stuff. If the killing isn't in some absolutely necessary, the service of something absolutely necessary. So I did get wrought up on the kitchen. And Meredith did a great job that night. She heard me talking and came down the stairs and started filming me. And at first I didn't even know she was there. She was silent, barefoot, and she kept her distance for a while as she filmed me on the floor. But once I did see her, I just kept going. I mean, why the hell not?
Now, this leads to another question with regard to your willingness to share those raw, intimate moments. Many people, as a documentary subject, would be hesitant to do that they would resist giving that much access to the filmmaker. They want to withhold some private space. You do not seem to do that in this film. Maybe you do, and we are not totally have access to everything that comprises Tim O'Brien, but you really open yourself up in a really remarkable way, and your family does too. Was that just natural, or did you make a conscious decision that I'm not going to hold back, I'm going to allow Aaron access?
Well, this is hard to express. I've never tried to find words for it, but I get angry at when I watch TV in which I feel it's a presentation of something and not the person presenting whatever is being presented. That a kind of wall between me and the person speaking on the screen. and it irritates me and sometimes makes me angry. Um, Even if they're talking about life and death issues, the death penalty or whatnot, there's an objectivity and a kind of artificial imposed distance from what should be, in my opinion, a subject of passion. So the energy that makes me open up comes out of a strange source, and the source is anger, or irritation at artificiality and pompousness and this whole constellation of distancing things. Right now, I'm as open as I was with Aaron at any time with you, so it's kind of natural to me, I think. However, if you were to say something that, like, let's elect Donald Trump, I'd get suddenly I'd be talking much differently. It would not be a nice, quiet little conversation. Aaron's probably thinking, oh God, he's just turned off all people who love Donald Trump from his movie. Sorry, that's the price you pay for choosing me.
Aaron,
Maybe Cliff will edit that out in your behalf.
oh no, we have to leave it all in. Aaron, this is obviously an incredible gift that you were given by Tim, in the sense of that openness and honesty. And many documentary subjects obviously are not willing to do that. Can you talk just a little bit about that privilege to have that?
It was a privilege, and I still feel extremely grateful, not just for what that material adds to the film, but because I got to know Tim and his family, and we've all become really close and friendly as a result of this film. And so I'm just so grateful for that. But listening to Tim, you're kind of reminded about why he has such a huge fan base and why people are drawn to his writing and his books. He tells it like it is. I think he's probably the most honest person I've ever met. He's someone who's extremely honest with himself, which is difficult for all of us to be. And it's something that I learned being with him, among many things that I learned over the last few years being with Tim. It's just the importance of admitting your own faults and then trying to wrestle with them, and make your life and the lives of those around you better. But I felt it was extremely special that Tim is like that, as he said, naturally, and he's like that in his public talks, and that he was able to be that way in front of the camera. Of course, like there's no documentary that captures the private life. There are things that we don't. I'm going to screw this up because I think it's in The Lake of the Woods, Tim. There's like, you talk about the privacy that people have, and there are certain things you're willing to say to the public, certain things you're willing to say to the best friend, and there's things you don't even tell yourself. So obviously, like, the documentary film doesn't capture, no documentary film I think captures that, and thank God, they don't. But you get a pretty raw, unfiltered, and insightful look. That's the thing about Tim. Like, there's a part of Tim where he was so unfiltered that he reminds you of like a reality TV character, except he, a person you see on reality TV who just lets it all hang out. But Tim actually is so smart and has so many things to say that his accessibility really is appealing in so many ways.
I might add, Cliff, that two things. One is Aaron will vouch, there are certain things I will not talk about, and those things have to do with I hurt somebody else. That is where I draw all my enthusiasm in. That includes writing books, what I do for a living. That I do not want to cause pain to other human beings. And sometimes it means not writing about it or speaking to Aaron about it, period. Other times, especially with Aaron, I would say, okay, I'll tell you this privately, but we're going to turn off the camera and I want you to, because you asked a question and you deserve an honest answer, but I don't want to hurt anybody. So I'll tell you. The second thing I want to say in response to this is that I remember one episode I was extremely sick. Turned out I almost died. I was so sick. I ended up with pneumonia. My organs were all shutting down. And Aaron was visiting the house just prior to my being hospitalized, within maybe 4 days of that. And I was on a living room couch, like sick couch, and I was hallucinating. I was believing that my kid had ordered food to be delivered from a body shop, and that it was coming to the house on a conveyor belt I believe this stuff. I was extremely sick. And I woke up from one of these hallucinatory sleeps I was having just prior to going into the hospital. And Aaron had set up a dolly for his camera in front of my sick bed. And he's zooming in on me. Atlas. I look like Boris Karloff. My skin had turned transparent and veins were sticking out. I was just a mess. And at first I didn't see Aaron at first. I saw the lens of his camera coming at me from a distance. And I wasn't sure whether this was a hallucination. And the other stuff was the real stuff, the food on the conveyor belt. That's how intimate our relationship was. We became, I think Aaron will agree, pretty close friends as a result of these years together. Because off camera, we established a relationship where we could talk about just all kinds of things unrelated to the film. Football, gambling, a trip to the Bahamas our family took together just for fun, not for filming. Where out of this project, probably as much as the film itself, which I adore, much to my shock and surprise, I think it's really a really wonderful piece of art. But equally important is the friendship that Aaron and I have developed along with our families in the course of doing this. So something quite wonderful beyond the film itself came out of this interminably long and experience together.
Well, Aaron had actually encouraged me to ask you what you thought of the film, and you've just shared that, I think. But did you want to expand a little bit about, did you learn anything about yourself in seeing your life presented through another person's eyes?
Yeah, I did. I learned what I learned but cannot do. I learned that I shouldn't get so riled up. It's off-putting. To me, it feels just normal and natural to speak the way I do. But in watching myself, come on, man, calm down. This isn't the end of the world. Although when I'm speaking, every subject I talk about feels world-ending. It feels like that to me personally, that this is really important. I've got to talk about it. But I do get too riled up. I just can't practice what I've learned yet. If I live another 74 years, then maybe I'll finally be able to rein in the old mouth.
Now I'm curious. Oh, go ahead, Aaron.
I was just going to say that the other element of Tim's character that I really appreciated and admired and tried to emulate was he really is just a very decent person and kind to the people around him, and he models, he gets angry with words occasionally and loses his temper, but he basically models very, very kind behavior. And for someone who's in the business of kind of pointing out our struggles, that's partly what his books are about. And that's like a major theme in the film. He's also a very decent person, and thankfully he's not just a decent person, because a decent person is difficult to make a film about. He's also complicated and interesting and loving and all those things. So.
And that anger obviously also helps make him an entertaining figure and an engaging figure on screen.
Well, yeah, people relate to that. They relate to it, but they're also, I think, the reactions I've gotten from people is a kind of cathartic, like, thank God someone is saying this way, this directly, you know. So they appreciate that, and they hold him up as someone who can speak for them, you know.
Now, Tim, here you've got a film, obviously, about your life, and you're exposing yourself in that way. But clearly, you do the same thing in your books. Your novels, obviously, are reflections of who you are in a very intimate way, and you've also written memoirs. I'm curious as to whether or not you see a distinction between your revelations in this film and how you reveal yourself in print.
Well, I do. And when I'm writing, each syllable is adjudicated and thought over. The rhythm of a sentence matters. The precision of word choice matters. When you're doing it orally, and as we're doing it now, you can't do all that revising and editing work that you do, so that there's a kind of a condensed feel to my books where the language is as nearly perfect as I can get it. Not never perfect, but as nearly perfect as I can manage. It's different when you're doing what I'm doing right now and what you're doing. We have to talk. Silences are embarrassing. When you're writing, most of what I do is silence. Almost all of it. There's very little motion of the hands typing. It's staring at through, not at the language or the word sentences I've written. It's staring through them into some kind of ghost world beyond the sentences, searching for the end of a clause or the beginning of a new sentence, a kind of what is the next language going to be. The odd thing that people really, I think, don't wholly grasp about the composition of stories or fiction is that the language often takes you to the story and not vice versa. You don't contemplate a scene and then find language to replicate it. You're following the language, trusting that that sentence will lead you into the next sentence by what the words that are on the page. And maybe the length of the sentence. Now I need a shorter one for varying of rhythm. Now I need a bit of repetition. Whatever it may be, the language is at least as important as the content of the story. It makes the content, I'd say, at least half the time, and probably much more than that. There's a line in my new book, Dad's Maybe book, to this effect, really, that you can't let us try to guide a story or push a story forward. You have to let the story pull you forward. It's got to do it to you without intent. And one of the hardest things to do for any writer is to disabuse oneself of the notion that intent can work. I'm going to intend or have a plane crash and have two survivors. One's a man, one's a woman, and I'll intend for them to survive the crash and fall in love with people dead all around them and try to make their way out of some, Indonesian jungle. If you intend that sort of thing, you're going to end up with something very much like what we did as kids when we connect the dots, and make a picture. It's intentionality. You have to learn to kind of throw it out the window. But when we're doing a documentary film, none of that applies. You just have to trust that what comes out of your mouth will somehow be edited by Aaron, where all the unnecessary things are taken out, and the little nugget, if there is one, of wisdom or of humor or whatever it may be, will remain. And that's where Aaron did such a marvelous job with this film. The shit that he cut out of this film, is enormous. The places where I'd say, God, let me please start over. And the scenes that went nowhere. So much was, and I think that Aaron would say that's a big part of filmmaking, is all you don't see on the screen. And I would say the order of magnitude must be 50 to 1, something like that, maybe more. Aaron, what might add something about this?
Yeah, I mean that is true. And the other gift in this film is that not only did I have Tim speaking extemporaneously like he is now, but also because the film is about him writing what he says is his last book. Um, we have actually his written words, and that posed a really interesting challenge, and one that a welcome challenge for me to kind of integrate those two forms of communication, and make his written words come alive in a different way with visual imagery attached. So there's both you get a real kind of inside look at what it takes to create something. I think a lot of people have mentioned that to me also, just like they've never seen what the writing process so intimately told before. But then there's also the scripted words that come out right out of Dad's Maybe book, which are just like I looked at them as poetry that I then wanted to create complementary visual poems for. And yeah, I was just really lucky to have that.
Tim, your book, the Dad's Maybe book, is obviously very much intended to uh, sort of give your thoughts on life to your sons, and to sort of give them an opportunity to have greater insight into who you are and what you are all about. And this film, I suspect, was also part and parcel of that project. So I'm curious, have they shared their thoughts? Have they seen the film? Have they given their ideas with regard to what they've encountered?
Yeah, they've seen it and they've given their thoughts. They think they're brilliant and I'm horrible. I'm exaggerating. Because they're my kids and because they live with me all the time, they know sometimes what I'm thinking as I speak. I don't know if it's a mannerism, but they know when I'm being evasive, and they know when I'm trying to be funny, but I'm failing. They've been with me long enough to know these things. And there's a running commentary as they watch the film. Dad, you're doing this. Dad, you're doing that. And they're almost always right, which is really disconcerting. You hear your kids say, Dad, you're trying to be funny and you're failing. That hurts. Fortunately, Aaron got rid of almost all of that. We're talking about the drafts that we watched together, as well as the final film.
Right.
There's one amazing scene that I'm not part of in this book. Probably the best scene in the whole film is where I didn't even know it was being filmed. Aaron was in a bedroom with Meredith, Timmy, and Tad, and they're lying in a bed, and I think it's daylight, right, Aaron? That's when this is happening. And it makes me tear up just to say it, but they're talking about me in my absence, which is a little bit like the nugget of my whole new book. When I'm dead, these children and my wife are going to be alive, and they're going to be lying in a bed, perhaps talking about dead me, not just the absent me in another room. And it was an eerie sensation. I can't remember the exact words, but I remember the gist of what was being said. That, yeah, Dad's having trouble with that chapter he's working on now, and it's one of Dad's bad times. And of course, every chapter is a bad time at some point. I've never written anything worth reading that just simply burst out, in full flower on a page in 30 seconds. It's all a tremendous psychic, even physical struggle. And they're lying in this bed talking about, Dad's been a bad temper today, and he's short fused, and things are going badly. And the problem with this is that it's not just one day, it's pretty much every day. This is in the life of a writer. And they've learned to talk about those bad times, which are so common, with a kind of forgiveness and understanding that really made me feel good, and kind of overhearing this by watching Aaron's movie, that they weren't crying and they weren't yelling. They were just sort of being quietly analytical about their own father, and in a forgiving kind of way. That's for me, it was the most touching part of the whole film.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit about, and Aaron referenced this in his previous comments, as far as the struggles of writing and how the film gives a really interesting view that most people don't obviously have an opportunity to see of the difficulty of putting something onto a page in a way that's satisfactory to you and that communicates exactly, as much as you can, exactly what it is you want to say. So I wanted you to just sort of weigh in a little bit about, given the agony sometimes that you experience in the writing process, then what is it that compels you to do it? Why do you still feel the necessity of writing, and where's the joy that you derive from it?
Well, the joy is in the completion and a kind of endorphin rush that this will tear up some old lady in Dubuque, or this will make a guy in, Tampa laugh. There's a rush in generating, you hope, through a story, an emotional response. And partly stories appeal to the head, but in general, stories appeal to the whole human being. They appeal to our blood pressure and to the napes of our neck if it's a scary story, and they appeal to the stomach gets sort of sickened by what's happening on the page. They appeal to nostalgia. A story may remind you, the reader, of an event not identical, maybe not even similar, but at least proximate to what you're reading on the page. And it may cause a certain wistfulness at 2 a.m. as you remember your own high school girlfriend, cheerleader. You never would say yes when you called her up for a date. That's after the writing. It's all the pleasure comes after, for me. After completing a sentence that I think will bring pleasure to somebody, there's gratification. But the actual doing of it, it is laborious and tedious and frustrating, and terrible. Why would a grown man do such a thing to himself? With the few remaining years in my life, why the hell did I spend 6 of them writing this book? Every day I think, stop, quit, do something sensible, like, go wash the dishes and do something that'll help the world. But there's that lure of gratification that if I can somehow put a sentence or two down that's graceful and can elicit some emotion from other people, that's gratification. So it's not enough gratification to make me want to write another book. That's for damn sure. But when I say damn sure, I'm already contemplating a story. And I haven't contemplated the story enough to actually begin writing much, but I have written a little. And it's already, I'm feeling how many years have I got left? Do I have 6 more left? And could I finish a book? And the answer, who the hell knows? It's doubtful, but maybe. So who knows? Maybe after saying this is my last book, it'll be my last book, except for the half a book that I might write before I do die.
That's hopeful for us. I was going to ask you whether or not you were still maintaining that Dad's Maybe book was going to be your final work, or whether or not somewhere in the back of your mind something was forming. And it's obviously heartening for those of us who admire your work so much that is still possible. So that's, I think, an appropriate place perhaps to end this interview on. And I really appreciate the extraordinary time that you've given over to this Q&A. So thanks again to both you and to Aaron for your
Thank
time.
you. Thanks.
Thank you, Cliff.
Bye, Aaron. Bye, Cliff.
Bye-bye.